It's time for the Northwoods Cooking Show. Starring Uncle Roy and Miss Callie, the troublemaking dog.
Hello and welcome to the Northwoods Cooking Show. I'm your host, Uncle Roy. Looks like I'm dressed for Thanksgiving, but it's Christmas. I thought I'd do something different. It certainly is different. Love the hat. This is one Diane got me for back in 2012 or 12, I think it was, in Paris. So this is my Parisian hat. So ooh la la. I thought it was kind of fun. I thought it matched my sweater for the holidays, and I'm like, oh, this has been perfect for Thanksgiving, but it's gonna work for Christmas. Anyway, today's episode, we're gonna be doing Christmas breakfast. Ooh, yummy, yummy. And this is gonna be so simple and easy because you don't really have to make a lot in the morning. You can make this all the night before, throw it in the refrigerator, and in the morning just throw things into the oven, boom, boom, boom. There you go, heat it up, and you're ready for breakfast. So what we're gonna first make is a ham and cheddar cheese strata. What's a strata? Oh, about 10 pounds, no. So, what we're going to do is cut up a loaf of bread, a pound, and into about 1-inch chunks, big chunks. And what better way to get rid of your day-old bread if you have stale bread lying around in the bread box, etc. My generation older, we know what a bread box is. The younger ones don't. But that's one good way of getting rid of your bread, your stale bread. But what I like to do is I'll just go to the bakery and their day-old section, you know, the cart, whatever, or the shelves, whatever, you know, the day-old bakery stuff. And that's where I buy a lot of my day-old bread for making things. Stuffing, you can use that for your holidays. Bread puddings, stratas. You can make many different flavors you want to. But I always get the day-old bread because it's still fresh and moist. You know, it's just a day-old, but it's half the price. Hello. So what did I got some sourdough. That works great. You want kind of a heavier bread. Hamburger buns and hot dog buns work swell too. We want like a white bread. You don't want to get flavored in there because you want to have it more white. Oh, perfect for bread pudding. Anyway, so what we're going to do is layer half of these breadcrumbs into the bottom of my 13 by 9-inch pan. And make sure to spray it well like I just did. I'm just gonna pack these down just a little bit just so we can get more of the ingredients in there so they're not flowing over the pan. And then I've got a cup of diced cubed ham. And I'm just gonna sprinkle half of this over the top. Very simple. Along with, you want 2 cups of shredded cheddar. I'm just going to pour half of it over the top. And what else was there? Oh, parsley. I want much as little as you want, but approximately a tablespoon entirely, so about a teaspoon and a half. You know, just sprinkle this over the top. If you have any chives, that would work good too, also to put in there. I don't have any fresh chives that used to in my other gardens, but I don't have any room here. But that's to say, that's whatever, blah, blah, blah. So, we got that. And I believe that's it. Arthritis killed me. Oh my God. Then we're going to put in over the top. I like to sprinkle about a tablespoon of sun-dried tomatoes. Now the ones that are completely dried, like dried cranberries, raisins, etc., work better. But my store didn't have that. All they had were the ones in oil. So just make sure to drain off the oil. But I'm gonna really love this because it already has Italian herbs mixed in with it. So that's going to be even better. That'll be real tasty. So we got that going. Now, I think that's it. Yeah. I can look at all my ingredients, make sure I got everything. I forget so easily. I want to say, especially at my age, well, it's not the age thing. I forget a lot of things. I always have. So now we just repeat the layers again. So bread, about a teaspoon and a half of the parsley, some more of the dried tomatoes. These look so good. Ooh. So now I got the other half cup of ham. Happy holidays. Happy holidays. Okay, we did all that. Boom, boom, boom. Now we got to do, see, tomatoes. I got that, and the cheese, ham. Let's see what else. I just happen to have some leftover cheese that I want to get rid of before it gets moldy. And it's just some slices of cheddar. Well, it's still cheddar, you know. But I can just crumble these up and put them on top, get some more cheesy going here. Excuse me. But you know how that goes. You know, you work with leftovers, what you got in the fridge, and how do you get rid of them? This is a good way. We need 1 dozen of eggs. It's a lot of eggs, but it's a big dish. So, I'm just going to crack these open into the bowl here. And you know, when cooking anything, and it calls for eggs, it's always large eggs. That's just a natural thing. Because large eggs equal exactly 1 egg equals a 1/4 cup, so it goes by measurements then. So whenever you're making something that calls for eggs, if you don't have large eggs, you need to come up and substitute some type of liquid to make sure that you get a 1/4 cup per egg. If you're using smaller ones, you got to have that moisture in there, that amount of liquid. So usually you can take and put water or more milk, etc. There we go. One in each hand. That's a Pam Sherman way of doing eggs. When I worked that restaurant, I had to crack open 3 cases. God, what was it, 48 dozen or whatever in a case, big cases. You learn to crack with 2 hands real fast. Then, a 1/2 cup of heavy cream. So there's a 1/2 cup. I'm like, where's my milk? I just bought it. Here it is. Oh my God, what did I put that in? And 1 1/2 of milk. Use whatever milk you want, but for baking, you really should use whole milk. But I got 2% here, and that'll work out just fine. And then we want, about a 1/2 teaspoon of spooks. And about a 1/2 teaspoon of cracked pepper. 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. Let's put a little bit of salt in there. About a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. And that's going in there. Now let's lay this in the sink here in the bottom. And we'll just buzz this up. And then we'll just take and pour this over our bread and cheese. Now I'm just running this through sieve only because I'm going to look for hunks of plastic. Like I said, that my pepper grinder was broken, so somebody was in there and they dropped, searching around on my side of the cupboard and dropped it and put it up there to hide it from me without saying anything. I go to use it and I get plastic in my food. That's the way it happens when you have roommates. So I'm going to take some fresh pepper again and just crack it on top. And then we'll just do a little bit of salt. Goes of salt. And just sprinkle a little bit of that on top. You don't have to go too much because there's a lot of salt and cheese. There really is. And then you can just let this sit overnight. I'm going to mushy it down so that it gets absorbed into the cubes on top. Otherwise, when you go to bake, it's going to be toasted burnt on top. So you want to get some liquid in there. Then we bake this in a 350 degree oven for about 40-45 minutes, or until a butter knife inserted comes out clean. You want to use a butter knife, not serrated, because then you're going to pull up food. And just cover this with foil or saran wrap, doesn't matter. But just take the saran wrap off when you put it in the oven, but you can cover this with foil. Stick it in the fridge, let it sit overnight, and then in the morning when the kids are opening breakfast or opening presents, you know they're going to be up before you will. Just shove this in the oven so you can go out there and join them and opening up the presents. You know what it's like to see the faces of the kids when they open up their presents. Ooh, ah, ooh. That's what I wanted. So we hope you enjoyed the ham and cheese strata for Christmas morning brunch. Okay, now on to our next recipe. We're going to be making butterscotch maple scones. Ooh, that sounds really, sounds really good, but it sounds like really decadent. That's the word I was thinking of. To make sinfully. So what I'm going to be making first, or what I'm doing first, is 1.5 cups of instant oatmeal and a cup of walnuts. And we want these chopped up slightly. These are halves. So I want to just crush them up a little bit here. You don't want great big huge have nuts in the scone, because you can bite into it. You just want a piece of nut, not a great big whole one. And what we're going to do is we're going to toast these in the oven. So I got a 350 degree oven going on, and we'll put these in for about 8 to 10 minutes. Mix these up a little bit, spread them out, and as they're toasting, you want to go in and just give them a stir every so often so they get toasted evenly and there's not big clumps of whiteness to it. And then when they're done toasting, we'll just let them cool and continue on. Okay, now in the food processor, we're going to put in 2 cups of flour, and you can level this off. Remember now, scones are considered a quick bread recipe, So like with all quick breads, as I've been teaching you, you want to mix your liquids in by hand and not the mixer, because we don't want to activate the gluten, because then we're going to have tough scones. So we got that. Now these are just the dry ingredients, so I'm not going to be activating the gluten. Half a cup of sugar. Let's see, along with my spoons. Clean side. 2 teaspoons of baking powder. I almost remember this from the back of my head making other scones from a different recipe and then other recipes. They all had that. One thing in common was 2 teaspoons of baking powder. A titch, because it was still kind of wet, so everything stuck to the inside. And a half teaspoon of the kosher salt. You know me and the kosher salt. But it's true. It's less sodium per spoon for spoon. It's less than sodium, and it does make everything light and fluffy. And that's what we really want with a scone. That baking powder and salt is going to make it just rise to the occasion. Oh, someone peeled out. See, I tell you, this intersection right here, this window is right on the intersection there with the community center, so it's like it's major traffic. Buzz this up for just a couple seconds. And then calls for 2/3 cup butter. Now you want to make sure that your butter is cold. It has to be hard cold, because that is what makes the difference in your scones and your quick breads, scones, dumplings, etc., muffins, whatever, is having the cold butter in there. Let's see, I can turn this way around. 1/3, because the cold butter helps to make your product much flakier and fluffier. And if it's melted, it doesn't rise to the occasion. You don't get those thin layers of the flour and stuff like croissants. The flakiness. The flakiness is caused by the butter, and it has to be cold. And so what I like to do then is also, like I said, this has to be cold, but also when you do this in the food processor, you want to do it in pulses so that it gets to be like a coarse cornmeal consistency. And you don't want to run that butter very long in the food processor, because the heat of the machine will take and melt that butter. The blades, the friction, all that. So you just got to pulse it until it's done, which is not very long. Just a few pulses until it gets all crumbly. Take a look at that. It looks about right, doesn't sound right though, because I can hear bigger chunks. There we go. Then we can put this into our larger bowl. Come on. I can just see it. What happened? Oh, what's that? Deep. My pothole is. Oh. Bells and buzzers, Callie. Bells and buzzers. Oh, hit the wrong button. There we go. That one's irritating, let me tell you. Okay, how are we doing here? Get the nuts out of the way. Those are nice and toasty, nice and light brown. Let those cool so we don't want to melt the butter. And it's nighttime, so the squirrels shouldn't be out. They should be napping. So I want to stick this outside in the back porch so that it cools. But I don't want the squirrels to eat it. But like I said, they should be napping. It's dark. So we'll be right back. Okay, now for the liquid part, we need a half cup of pure maple syrup. This is what's going to give it the maple flavor. Okay, these are nice and cool. And the squirrels went out there, so I still got all the product. Anyway, I'm mixing this up and I found some. See, remember I told you I heard that it didn't sound right? I'm finding some big chunks here, so I'm just breaking these up by hand and blending them in with the dry ingredients. See? I know what I'm doing. I get this tell by my ear when things aren't right. You know, people are like, well, you know, you got the right consistency. I know. You know, after years of experience, you know by touch, feel, smell, sound, everything. All your senses. You can just tell by hearing things, you know, in that mixer. You know what it sounds like. And when you hear a little clink, clink, clunk, you know something's in there. So there, got that mixed. Then we need a cup of butterscotch chips. That's the butterscotch in the butterscotch maple scones. Hello, hello, hello. That ain't kind of hard to figure out, my weakness. I love butterscotch chips. Whoa. Butterscotch chips and oatmeal. Oatmeal cookies, yum, yum, yum. So I'm just tossing this around a little bit. Make a well in the middle. And just another fresh whiskey. And just pour this mixture right in the middle. Now here's the part to remember and tricky about scones. Scones are going to be light and fluffy, kind of like almost like a biscuit. Like a baking powder biscuit, you know? So you want it fluffy, as high as it can rise, you know? You don't want it flat, you don't want it hard. And the important thing about that, keeping it to get there, is your mixing. Like quick breads, you don't want to overmix and activate that gluten. That's why we have to do it by hand. And we add the liquid to the dry. You just take and mix this up now until everything is moist and stop. You don't want to over mix this. You want to make sure all the dry ingredients are moist though. So scrape the sides and the bottom of the bowl. Move your mixture around inside here. Making sure now you're getting all that dry, because you don't want to have dry clumps. You don't want to bite into a dry spot. So all of it has to be moistened. But as soon as it is all moistened, see I still got some whiteness here, so that's not quite all moist yet. But it will be in about 2 seconds. There we go. You stop. It's done. Leave it. Next, you can use a cake pan, a flat pan, cookie sheet, baking sheet, whatever. And do it however. I'm just doing a spring form because I want it a little thicker and easier to get out of the pan. But you don't have to use one. But make sure whatever pan you do use that you spray thoroughly. We don't want that sticking. And then we just plop this right in the middle. Now with scones, it's just like pie crust. The less you touch it, the better. Like I said, don't activate that gluten. That can be samples to eat. And then we're just going to pat this down. Ooh, Get my sleeves up. Just pat this down inside the pan. That's why I'm using the spring form, so that it can come out easily. You can take and just pat this on your surface of your flat pan into a big round shape. Because you want this in a round shape, because when these are done baking, you want to take and cut these into wedgies, like a pie, you know, slices of pie. So I was going around making sure this all flat and even. You don't have to be perfectly even, but predominantly. And then throw it in the oven at 300 or 425 degrees for about 20 to 25 minutes. Or then when they're done, we can glaze them with the maple glaze frosting. Or if you want this for breakfast, put this product now, cover it, throw it in the refrigerator, take it out in the morning. Then you have hot, fresh scones. The say is, you could take and bake these now, cut them up, and then just put them in a paper bag or plastic bag, whatever, when they're cold, cooled off completely, and save them for the morning, and then make your frosting, your glaze that we're going to be making, and drizzle onto the scone then. But I want to take and save them for the morning. I would save it for the morning, then bake it. When you pull out, they're hot and fresh, and then let them cool off naturally, and then glaze them so that you still have somewhat of a warm scone to eat with that hot. Heat will kind of melt the frosting, drizzle it over more. So that's what I would do for Christmas morning. But you can do it any way you want to. Okay, now I'll just take and make the glaze. That we need a half cup powdered sugar, 2 teaspoons of the maple syrup, 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Then we'll just mix this up. And these are our scones. Now mine got a little darker around the edges, so my suggestion would be it has to stay at 425 because you want the hot heat to make it fluff up rise. It got a nice high rise to it. But I would take and cut down on the time to about, because I remember scones used to be 25, 30 minutes. And this recipe that I found online was for 45, and that's way too long. And you could even take, and I would to remember too, that when you make these, to score or to cut into the batter in the pan itself, so that way after it bakes, all you have to do is just almost break them apart and they'll fall apart, and you get the sides baked then too, because these are raw, because I had to cut into the whole big round circular one. I forgot to score it, you know, deeply into wedgies before I baked it. It happens, it happens. I mean, it's not gonna wreck the taste of it. It's gonna be wonderful, because I already had some of the crumbs and they're good. Really good. But it's just, you know, more of a helpful hint for you to remember to, I would just not bake it as long. I'd go at 25, 30 minutes. And you can always go longer if you need to, but not that full 45. And then you just make this ooey gooey maple frosting, this glaze, and just run this over the top. So I gotta eat in moderation. And then this is our lovely ham and cheese strata. Yum. Now remember, this is a great recipe to put together the night before and throw both batches into the refrigerator, and in the morning just throw them in the oven to bake. Hope you enjoy these. Happy holidays from the Northwoods Cooking Show. Eat healthy, be safe, and spread the sunshine. Bye-bye. Merry Christmas.